What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Figures of Sport podcast. We are here for episode 69 of the podcast. We have been pumping content out every single week for you guys, making sure that you guys are up to date on everything going on in sports. So, huge shout out to everybody who has watched, subscribed, liked the videos, commented on videos, and just been a part of this Figures of Sport family. We really appreciate you guys. But speaking of us appreciating it, we would also appreciate if you subscribe if you're not subscribed. Like this video if you haven't already, and make sure that most importantly you are sharing this video to your friends, your family, and anybody who should know anything about sports. So I would really appreciate that. We would really appreciate that. And without further ado, we are going to jump right into episode 69 of the Figures of Sport podcast. And the first thing that we are going to talk about today is the MLB and the hottest team in baseball, the Milwaukee Brewers. So the Brewers were on a 14-game win streak. When we posted our last video, they were on a 10-game win streak. And obviously, if you guys saw the some of the short form videos that we've posted across social platforms like TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, you know that we were at one point, they were at 13 wins, right? So their streak was broken at number 14. And, it was the longest in the MLB this season. They fell to the Cincinnati Reds. I believe that was yesterday because we are recording this on Monday, August 18th. They lost on Sunday to the Cincinnati Reds, which snapped their streak. But as I said, we are recording this on Monday. They are currently winning against the Chicago Cubs in game one of a doubleheader today. I'm not too sure if that second game is going to be played because of rain, so I would expect a doubleheader tomorrow and them just playing this first game. But it looks like the Brewers are going to win game one of today's slate. And this team is absolutely incredible. I mean, they have had so many comeback wins during this streak alone, right? I do remember watching against the Cincinnati Reds on Saturday night where they were, backs against the wall in extra innings, and they were able to come out and win that game. So, they honestly have been absolutely incredible to watch this season. And I know that it's such a hard thing for us to do when we talk about the Milwaukee Brewers and playoff success based on what we've seen over the last few years from them. But I mean, they have the best record in baseball. They are 78-45. It looks like they're going to be 79-45 after game one of that supposed doubleheader today. And they lead the NL Central by over 8 games against the Cubs, and they have absolutely looked incredible. And they are pitching, they're playing good defense, they're hitting. I mean, they are, and the most important thing I think with the Milwaukee Brewers is that they aren't just hitting, but they have timely hitting. They're capitalizing on runners in scoring position. Guys are coming up big. I think last week we were actually watching the game where they were playing against the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I believe it was Sal Frelick. He hit a leadoff home run against Paul Skeens. I think Paul Skeens got tagged for a few runs that game too, which is very unheard of. I feel like since he's kind of came up into the league over the last year or so, and they are hitting the ball. They are starting hot, and when they're not starting hot, they are finishing hot. It has been absolutely incredible to watch this team. And Christian Yelich has been on fire. He's had multiple home runs and RBIs during this stretch. And like I said a little bit ago, they have a 5-game set against the Chicago Cubs. Right now, they're up in game one. Like I said, I don't think they're going to play game two today. I think game two is going to be pushed to tomorrow for a doubleheader tomorrow instead. But with 4 games left in this series against the Milwaukee Brewers, if the Chicago Cubs aren't able to take at least 3 of the next 4 games, this could essentially be the Milwaukee Brewers clinching the division. This series here. I know we're only in the middle of August, but that's exactly what it seems like can happen right now with a month and a half almost of baseball left. it just feels like the way this Milwaukee Brewers team is playing right now, if they are able to win 3 or 4 of this 5 game stretch against the Chicago Cubs, they are going to win this division, and possibly by double digits. The Chicago Cubs have struggled mightily um, in August. Kyle Tucker, I believe, after his performance for the first 15 or so days in August, he has been really, really struggling at the plate. And I believe the other day we even saw him not even running out of ground ball. I think this may cost him some money. To be completely honest, I don't think he's hit a home run in almost a month. It feels like forever for him and for Pete Crow Armstrong, as far as those being two of the biggest names on this team and most productive guys in the first half. They have been awfully quiet in August, and really since the break, they have been really quiet. Yeah, I know PCA had a 308, I believe, batting average in July, but power wise, it has been at least 20 or so games, I believe, since he's last hit a home run. So, you know, it is honestly quite shocking to see that this Cubs team is kind of imploding in front of our eyes. Luckily, they do still have a lead in the wild card. It seems like they are a team that can definitely still make the playoffs through the wild card. The Reds are closing in on a spot, though. They're 5.5 games back from the Cubs, but they're only 1.5 games back from a wild card spot. The Padres have that number 2 spot. They're 69 and 55, coming off of getting swept by the Dodgers. So for them to still be in second place and within striking distance of the Dodgers, that they shouldn't be too worried. The Mets are 66 and 58 in the third wild card spot. But again, I just think when we're looking at teams in the National League, the Milwaukee Brewers are honestly ahead of every other team. I just don't see any other team right now clicking as good as they really are. The Dodgers, the powerhouse team that they are not clicking on all cylinders. Yes, they did just sweep the San Diego Padres, but I still don't think that's enough for them to be considered the best team in baseball. They're definitely not even the best team in the National League right now. So, um, you know, again, so we're going to talk about the Padres and the Dodgers. As I said, the Padres got swept in a 3 game series. So the Dodgers were able to retake the NL West lead. Um, it was a crucial series for both teams. This was the opportunity for either team to kind of take control of the NL West. Mookie Betts in Sunday's finale hit a clutch solo home run to kind of seal the deal for them. I believe they won 5-4 in that game, and they lead the Padres by 2 games. They will face each other again later this week. So if the Padres are able to bounce back and win a few games in that series, we might be looking at another tie atop the NL West, depending on how this week goes for both of those teams. But I do think that the NL West is going to be a very, very competitive division race, between those two teams when we come down to the end of September. I think that both teams have been playing not their best, but I do think that this is going to be probably one of the more competitive divisions that we see for a division title race. So uh, it's going to be exciting, though. I really do enjoy watching those two teams face against each other, because they truly do have a real rivalry. It feels like sometimes rivalries are lost in the game of baseball. Because it's, I feel like we really have the Yankees, Red Sox, and then other than that, I feel like they're the two teams that truly have bad blood against each other would be the Dodgers and the Padres. In fact, I think when Mason Miller was traded to the San Diego Padres, one of the first things that they told him was, "Hey, we do not like those guys over there in LA." So I truly do look forward to seeing this weekend series and seeing how those two teams are going to fare against each other. It's going to be a 4 game series from Thursday to Sunday. So I'm excited for that series for sure. It should be very exciting. And we'll see who kind of comes out on top. And we'll talk about that in next week's episode as well. But we're also going to talk about the AL wildcard race. It is extremely close. At the time that we're recording this, the Mariners, the Red Sox, and the Yankees are all separated by just a half game. The Yankees and Red Sox do play a 4-game series this week, though, and it will obviously have huge implications in the wild card race for those teams. If the Yankees, they're currently third in the wild card race, if they are able to play really well against the Red Sox this week, they can leapfrog into that number 2 spot, and you know that could become a favorable matchup for maybe the Red Sox, depending on who they end up facing in the third wild card spot when it comes to the postseason or not. So we'll definitely follow that one as well. But I do think that is going to be a very, very exciting series. I'm super excited to see that one as well. Like I said, having the Yankees Dodgers or the Yankees Red Sox this week and the Padres Dodgers in such close battles between those two or those 4 organizations, it's going to be an exciting week for baseball. So I'm super hyped for that. Um, and another thing, the Kansas City Royals actually have won 3 straight games. They are only 4 games out of the third wild card spot. They are gaining some momentum. Obviously, the Cleveland Guardians are ahead of them, but I do think that if the Royals are able to keep it up, they may be a sneaky team to end up in the playoffs. I'm not too sure if the Yankees or the Red Sox will kind of fall off entirely and give up that third wild card spot. But I do think that the Royals should be a team to watch throughout the rest of the season. I do think that if they pick up some steam, they could be a solid team to watch in the postseason. So we will keep an eye on that. But before we transition over to uh, NFL, the one thing I do want to say is speedy recovery to Zach Wheeler. He is dealing with a blood clot, I believe, in his shoulder, and he did have a thrombolysis procedure to remove it. But there is no timetable for his recovery, so we're going to wish a speedy recovery to Zach Wheeler. He has obviously been one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball this season. Definitely looks like he was a favorite for the NL Cy Young. So this is really heartbreaking to see that this comes at this time. But speedy recovery to Zach Wheeler. We hope that he can recover and return to the Phillies sooner rather than later. Obviously, they are going to need their ace when it comes to the postseason. So hopefully he's able to go come October or some point earlier in the season. So, but the next thing that we are going to talk about is the NFL. Today, the Cleveland Browns announced that Joe Flacco, the 40-year-old quarterback, will start week 1 against the Cincinnati Bengals. Not too sure how I feel about that. Dylan Gabriel, the guy who they drafted, I believe it was in the 3rd or 4th round of the NFL draft this year. He did not perform well at all in the first few preseason games. Shador Sanders did perform pretty well, but Kenny Pickett, I believe he was dealing with a little bit of an injury, and so he wasn't named, the starter. But I'm surprised that they are going with Joe Flacco. I do think that uh, within the first 5 or 6 weeks, we may see a change at the quarterback position, whether it's Kenny Pickett or Dylan Gabriel or Shador Sanders. But I do think that within the first quarter or so of the season, we might see a change at that quarterback position for the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, they are without Deshaun Watson for the entire season, if I'm not mistaken. So, but shout out to the 40-year-old. He is still winning quarterback jobs over the young guns. So at least you got to tip your hat to him. So, but the next thing we're going to talk about another young quarterback, Cam Ward, the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft. He's had a shaky start for the Titans in his last preseason game. Against the Falcons, he had 42 yards on 2 of 7 passing. He did not look that great over 3 drives, but it is obviously it's his introduction really to the NFL. So I think especially with Will Levis being out, because at the time when Will Levis's injury was announced, They hadn't quite named a starter yet, but this is obviously going to thrust Cam Ward into that starting QB role, and whether he's ready or not. But hopefully we can see some success from the young quarterback, because obviously Tennessee has not had um, very great showings from their quarterbacks over the last few years. It's kind of been um, a revolving door of quarterbacks since Ryan Tannehill was kind of given the boot in Tennessee. So hopefully he is able to straighten things out, and we get to see Cam Ward have a successful first year in the NFL. Next up, we're going to talk about James Cook. James Cook from the Buffalo Bills. We talked about it last week that he was holding in, so he was just not participating in games. But he did finally get that contract situation settled for a 4-year, $48 million deal. I think he was looking for somewhere around 15 or 16 million, but him and the Bills were able to settle on $12 million per year as an average. I think it was a good deal for both sides. James Cook was really, really good for the Buffalo Bills last year, and if he can continue to perform at that level, I think that they will be able to find some success, hopefully more success than they've had in the last couple of years in the playoffs. But I do think it was a great deal for both sides. And finally, they now have that resolved, and we are going to see James Cook suiting up week 1, ready to go against the Ravens for the Buffalo Bills. So super, super excited for that. I love the Buffalo Bills. Yes, I'm a Chicago guy, but Josh Allen is one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch in the NFL. So it's going to be exciting to see what this Buffalo Bills team can do. They now have Josh Allen locked up. They have their running back locked up. I do have some questions about their depth defensively, but we will have to see. And speaking of the Buffalo Bills, let's stay on that topic. They played the Chicago Bears yesterday night on Sunday Night Football. And yes, it's a preseason game. I believe it's week 2 of the preseason, right? Don't look into it too much, but they were absolutely dismantled by the Chicago Bears. Um, you know, Caleb Williams in his first drive was able to go 100 yards almost and down the field and just score. Players were wide open in the middle of the field for the Buffalo Bills. And again, I understand that maybe the Bills aren't playing their starting defensive unit, but still defensively, some of those guys who are on that second unit are obviously trying to fight for a roster spot. So it's a little disheartening to see that they are not looking as good as they should. But again, it is still early in the NFL preseason, so it'll be interesting to see what maybe changes they make, or who ends up making the roster. And I believe the Bills are on this year's HBO Hard Knocks, so I'm going to be definitely tuning in to see kind of what happens. Hopefully they're following in this preseason game. It'll probably come later, but or later in the series. But it'll be interesting to kind of see maybe some of the reactions on field, as Hard Knocks likes to give the inside look of things. So it'll be interesting to see what if they kind of take some of this information from or take some of the footage from the game against the Bears, and maybe how Coach McDermott is able to address that with his players. But definitely tune into Hard Knocks if you guys haven't. It's obviously a great, great show to give you a deep inside look of the team that they're following for training camp, and sometimes they do it for teams in season as well. So definitely, if you haven't taken a look, make sure you guys check that out, especially if you are a Bills fan or just a fan of football. Definitely worth the watch. Next up, we're going to talk about Trey Hendrickson, the defensive end for the Cincinnati Bengals. He has obviously voiced his opinion that he wanted to be traded a few months ago, and supposedly the Bengals were willing to potentially trade him, but then obviously nothing happened, and contract talks have stalled again. But now there's rumors coming out that the Bengals are listening to offers for Trey Hendrickson. So it is going to be interesting to see whether or not they move him or not. Supposedly they want a young player young defensive player, and a first round pick in next year's draft. But Trey Hendrickson is 31 years old, and I think it's going to be tough because for a team to give up a first round pick, a young player, and have to pay Trey Hendrickson, I think that is a high asking price. I think if if the Bengals are willing to accept a second round, maybe a third round pick, um, and possibly a young player, I think that's a deal that might that's something that might be able to get done a little bit sooner. I do think it's going to be hard for a team to give up first round capital, a young player, and pay Trey Hendrickson probably upwards of $30 million per season. And again, he's 31 years old, and there's no knock on that. But it's a little bit tougher to give up a large amount of capital and cap space for a guy who's 31 years old. But if that asking price as far as draft compensation and young player is able to kind of get knocked down to, like I said, a second or third round pick, I can see the Bengals being willing to move him because it doesn't seem like they are going to pay him because honestly, I don't think they have enough money to pay him because of what they've just paid Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins over the last couple of seasons. So it'll be interesting to see what that situation ends up being. Obviously, there's only a few weeks left before the season starts. Um, I'm not entirely sure if Trey Hendrickson will sit out, but I feel that if he isn't going to get paid, he is not going to risk an injury and potentially lower his payday. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that and follow along with the Trey Hendrickson situation for the Cincinnati Bengals. But another star that is a little bit disgruntled and has requested a trade and or a contract is Terry McLaurin from the Washington Commanders. Obviously, that news broke a few weeks ago that he was upset that they couldn't get a deal done and he requested a trade. But um, it's going to be a bit interesting to see how the Washington Commanders kind of do this because they have brought in some guys like Laramie Tunzel, and then obviously they have to pay guys like Frankie Louvu and Marcus Lattimore or Marshawn Lattimore, sorry, and it's going to be a little difficult to see them paying everyone and making everybody happy. Obviously, if Jaden Daniels continues on this upward trend after the season he had last year, you are going to 100% need a wide receiver that you can depend on for a young quarterback. It is absolutely crucial that a young quarterback has a veteran wide receiver that they can trust and they can get the ball to in tough situations. And if the Washington Commanders lose Terry McLaurin, any hopes of them competing and making a deep playoff run, I think, is going to be eliminated. I just don't see them being successful without having Terry McLaurin available for them on this team. And I think the biggest debate in this contract situation is the fact that you have guys like, for example, a Mike Evans and a Cortland Sutton who are making somewhere between 24 $26 million a year, and then you have a guy like DK Metcalf who's making upwards of $30 million a year. But when you look at a guy like Mike Evans, he's been consistent year in and year out, 1,000 yards, double digit ish touchdowns almost every year. And then, you look at a guy like DK, it seems that Terry McLaurin has better numbers than DK Metcalf. They came out of the same draft class and everything like that too. But the difference is Terry McLaurin has not really had any consistency at the quarterback position. He's had to deal with another revolving door situation of quarterbacks. So he's put up consistent numbers year in and year out. So I do think that he is looking more at the DK Metcalf range himself, saying that if DK Metcalf is getting upwards of $30 million, I believe I should too. But then again, you look at a guy like, for example, Mike Evans, who has done that on a year in, year out basis, and he's only getting 24, 25 million. I think that is where the two sides are apart. Obviously, McLaurin wants to be paid more like DK, especially if he's putting up numbers better or similar to DK. So it's going to be very interesting to see. He requested a trade. I don't think the Commanders are going to grant the trade request. I really just don't see it happening. They need him there for Jaden Daniels. Again, I don't see them having any true success if he is gone. as far as contending for a Super Bowl or a deep playoff run as they did last year. So it's really going to be interesting to see how this situation unfolds. But obviously, you guys know, as soon as we hear anything, you guys are going to hear it here on this podcast as well. So make sure you guys stay tuned, because we are absolutely going to be following that whole situation for both Trey Hendrickson and Terry McLaurin. But so now we're going to talk about the NBA, and there is a lot to talk about for the NBA. Obviously, there is a new TV deal, and supposedly this is the broadcast schedule for the new TV deal. On Mondays, games are supposed to be aired on Peacock. On Tuesdays, we are seeing NBC and Peacock. Wednesdays, we've got ESPN. Thursdays, we've got Amazon Prime. Fridays, we've got Amazon Prime and ESPN. Saturdays, we've got Amazon Prime and ABC. Sundays, we've got ABC, NBC, and Peacock. And then also on top of that, they are supposed to be adding a Coast to Coast Tuesday, which is going to have the second leg of a Tuesday night NBA doubleheader that is now going to begin at 11 p.m. Eastern Time instead of the original 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time that they had for the last few seasons. Obviously, this has caused a little bit of uproar in the NBA fan community because of the fact that, you know, you look at a game on the West Coast that, it's starting at their 7:30, 8 o'clock time, and on the East Coast now you're looking at an 11 o'clock start time on a Tuesday. It's almost impossible that people who work the next day at 8 or 9 a.m. are going to be able to and sit there and thoroughly enjoy watching a basketball game that probably won't end until at least 1 a.m. Eastern time. I think that it is incredibly difficult for them to have high ratings on those games when you are starting so late. I have a friend of mine who lives on the East Coast, and I mean, after he heard this news, he kind of straight up said that he genuinely does not believe he is ever going to watch a full doubleheader on a Tuesday night. It's just too hard to do, to have to stay up late watching that game until 1:30, and who knows, if it goes to overtime, you're looking at 2 o'clock for some of those games on a Tuesday night. And then, some of these people have to go to work at 8 or 9 a.m. the following day. I don't think it was a smart idea by the NBA to do that. And honestly, I would not be surprised if they see a ratings dip, especially on Tuesdays, being that is such a late time for games to start. Not the best idea, in my personal opinion. But I guess when the money talks, right, you kind of have to listen to it, right? So I'm not a huge fan of that myself either. Obviously, I'm in Chicago, so we're on Central Time here, and even then, a game starting at 10 p.m. Chicago time and not being done until at least 12 o'clock in the morning it's just not ideal. I think if anything, the best idea would have possibly been to push the games earlier. Maybe started at 10 p.m. Eastern time, 9 p.m. Central time, and maybe push the first game of the doubleheader up from sometimes it's at 7 o'clock or 6:30 to maybe 6 o'clock. Or 5:30. I think that might have been a little bit of a better decision, is to make it earlier rather than later. Maybe you get your ratings to kind of go back up. But hey, I just talk on a podcast. I don't work for the NBA, right? So, but again, I'm not a huge fan of it. So let me know what you guys think, though, in the comments. Are you guys a fan of the new coast to coast format, with the start time being pushed back to 11 p.m. Eastern time, 10 p.m. Central time? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. But we are also going to talk about the NBA Rivals Week. Rivals Week has been something that they've done for the last couple of years, I believe now. I think it's the fourth year that this will be the fourth year that they've done this. It's going to be, classic rivalries and new budding rivalries between teams and players that will take center stage between January 20th and January 24th. So the rivalries will be focused of 11 national games over 5 days. with double headers on NBC, ESPN, Prime Video, and a triple header on ABC. So some of the big games that we've got on January 20th, for example, are going to be the Spurs and the Rockets, the Lakers and the Nuggets. On January 21st, we're going to see the Cavaliers at the Hornets, the Thunder at the Bucks, and then on January 22nd, we are going to see three games: the Warriors and Mavericks, the Lakers and Clippers, and sorry, uh, yeah, the Warriors and Mavericks, the Lakers and Clippers, just those two. Sorry about that. And then on January 23rd, we are going to see the Rockets and Pistons, the Pacers and Thunder. And then January 24th is where we'll see a triple header of the Knicks and Sixers, the Warriors and Timberwolves, and the Lakers and Mavericks. So I think the rivalry week or the rivals week is something that I am a fan of. I do like seeing teams that honestly have maybe a little bit of bad blood against each other, or for example, a team like the Lakers and Mavericks where they traded their stars to each other. So I do enjoy that. I just, again, I'm not going to be a huge fan of maybe some of these super late games, just because I'm not entirely sure I'm going to be able to watch them, and actually enjoy watching some of those games. So I think out of those few games that I mentioned, honestly, the worst game there seems to be the Cavaliers and the Hornets. Um, Definitely not a fan of that game. Just because I feel like yes, you have LaMelo Ball and some solid players on the Hornets, Brandon Miller and such, Con Canuple, but it's not. I didn't really see a rivalry between those two teams, honestly. But hey, hopefully it's an interesting game. It's a 6 o'clock Eastern time start, or 7 p.m. Eastern time start, 6 p.m. Central time start. So I'll probably end up watching it. Maybe not be the biggest fan of it, but I will probably end up watching it. So it'll be. I'm excited for Rivals Week. There's a lot of good matchups, so looking forward to that for sure. And then obviously we have the NBA Cup. Amazon is supposedly going to show 17 games, 17 of the tournament games, NBA Cup tournament games, including the championship. And again, uh, on Prime Video, so it's gotta have a subscription to that. I'm just not the biggest fan of the fact that you now need to kind of to enjoy the NBA season. You will need to have Peacock subscription, Amazon Prime subscription, and and then on top of that have your cable provider or your whether it's you have YouTube TV or Hulu or whatever the case is, but to be able to watch the games on NBC, ABC, and ESPN too. So I'm just not really a huge fan of the fact that I need all these different subscriptions to just watch the NBA. I really enjoyed it when it was just ESPN, TNT. Um, I, I thought it was so much easier that way. But again, I just talk on a podcast, right? So, but last but not least, we've got to talk about it because it was such an exciting event. UFC 319 was here in Chicago. The energy around the city was absolutely incredible. So many people were excited. I went out with a couple of my buddies and we were able to watch the fights. Had a great time. UFC 319 was an excellent card. Honestly, until the last fight. And I think if you saw the first, because again, we're going to focus on the main card here, right? So uh, the first fight of the main card was Tim Elliott and Kai Asakura, which I picked Kai Asakura to win that fight, but he was actually submitted by Tim Elliott. And I thought that was still a solid fight, though, overall. And then we moved to the next fight, and it was Michael Page against Jared Cannonier. He won by unanimous decision. Michael Page had multiple opportunities, in my opinion, to end the fight, potentially by knockout or TKO. But he was doing what he does and kind of trolling and having a good time fighting Jared Cannonier. But I do think that if he maybe didn't do that as much, he definitely could have ended this fight in a more dominant fashion. Yes, again, he was there was multiple knockdowns and great punches and putting Cannonier on his behind on the canvas a few times, but I do think again he could have easily ended that fight with a knockout if he had just maybe not trolled as much. But overall, I thought it was a solid fight. Then you've got the next two fights that, in my opinion, were the best on the main card. Carlos Prates and Jeff Neal. Carlos Prates hit him with a nasty spinning elbow with zeros on the clock. I mean, talk about a buzzer beater. Carlos Prates, that was one of the most incredible knockouts that I've seen. With that nasty spinning elbow, that was an incredible way to end that fight. Again, you heard the 10-second timer kind of coming down, and next thing you know, 2 seconds, 1 second, boom, lights out. It was incredible. I really, really enjoyed watching that fight. And then after the fight, he caught him outside in the press conference, smoking a cigarette, and he said, "Hey, it feels really, really good to smoke this cigarette after you kind of win like that." So that was an incredible fight, though. A huge, huge buzzer beater by Carlos Prates. And then in the following fight, Lerone Murphy said, "Oh, I could do that too," and ended the fight against Aaron Pico by spinning elbow as well. That was, again, I think those two fights back to back, that was incredible. I actually saw something while kind of getting ready for this episode today that there has only been 8 spinning elbow knockouts in the UFC since it has started or since it was created almost 33 years ago or so. 8, and we saw 2 more in one night on one card. That's incredible. So shout out to Lerone Murphy and Carlos Prates for having 2 excellent, excellent fights, and ending them in a very, very exciting way. So, which, by the way, we also did pick Lerone Murphy and Carlos Prates to win. We went 4 of 5 on the predictions that we made here on the podcast. With Kai Asakura being the lone upset there. And he was actually the biggest favorite on this card, which was a bit shocking to me. But then now we're going to talk about the main fight, Khamzat Chimaev against Dricus du Plessis for the middleweight title. And from the jump, DDP had absolutely no chance. I look back at the episode from last week, and I don't know why I struggled to truly pick. I should have known from the beginning it was going to be Khamzat Chimaev. What a showing by Khamzat Chimaev. And again, I said up until the last fight, it was very exciting. Yes. The reason I say that is because not a lot of people are fans of a fight where it's strictly just grappling and wrestling and on the ground for 4 minutes of the round, 4.5 minutes of the round, which is exactly what Khamzat Chimaev did. He attacked DDP's biggest weakness, which was grappling. Khamzat Chimaev had him on the ground. I think he had 8 takedowns in the fight, maybe more. I forgot at this point, but DDP was on the ground for like the entire fight. Chimaev was dominant in his performance. DDP couldn't counter anything. Chimaev was just on top of him. Tried submitting him a couple of times, hitting constant, jabs to the head, to the body, things like that. And DDP he had no way out throughout the entire fight. A super, super dominant performance by Chimaev. And, I think that, again, it may not be some people's favorite style of fighting, but overall, he played to his strengths and he played to DDP's weakness, and he was able to take advantage of that and win the middleweight belt from DDP. So can't really complain. Hey, he went in there with a game plan, he executed the game plan, and he walked out victorious. So that's all you can really ask for at this point, right? So, but overall, I had a great time watching this card. A bunch of exciting fights on this card. I had a great time watching it with my buddies, and I hope you guys really enjoyed it too. Let me know what you guys think of UFC 319, especially if you're in the city of Chicago. I really want to know your guys' thoughts. What did you guys do? Where did you guys go to watch the fights? And what did you guys think of the card overall? Would really love to hear that in the comments below. But I think we're going to call that an episode, everybody. And again, I really do appreciate everybody who takes the time to watch. We absolutely appreciate every single one of you that takes the time to watch the videos, comment under the videos, whether it's on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram or anything like that. It means a huge, huge amount to me. It means so much that you guys are taking time out of your days to watch and support us. But again, if you guys haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel, you like this video, and you share this with your friends and your family and anyone else who should be up to date on the newest information in sports. We really appreciate you guys, and we will catch you on the next one.